I never imagined betrayal could arrive in a whisper, delivered beside a coffin while the rain blurred everyone's faces. Yet that's exactly how it happened. As the coffin sank into the cold earth, Marcus leaned toward me and said 6 quiet words that changed everything. "You're moving out tomorrow, old man." I didn't flinch. I didn't speak. I simply smiled. The kind of smile that once calmed Evelyn when storms hit the roof. But inside, something in me stirred, something I hadn't felt in decades. "Dad," Marcus said more loudly, pretending concern for the others watching. "You okay?" I turned slowly to face him. His black suit was sharp, expensive, perfectly tailored, like he'd been waiting for this funeral for a while. His eyes held no grief, only calculation. "I'm fine," I said softly. "It's a hard day." That's all. He nodded, squeezing my shoulder like a man consoling his father, but his grip lingered just long enough to remind me who thought he was in control now. Then he stepped back to stand beside Clarissa, his wife, who clutched her black umbrella like a queen receiving guests. Her lips curved upward when she looked at the house behind us. Our house. The pastor's voice droned on about Evelyn's kindness, her generosity, her unwavering faith. The words drifted in and out, washed away by the steady drizzle. I focused on Marcus's face instead. He wasn't crying. He wasn't even pretending to. He just stared at the ground, lips pressed tight, like someone waiting for the reading of a will. Behind us, relatives whispered under umbrellas. "She left a lot, didn't she?" One cousin murmured. "I heard the house is fully paid," another said. "Marcus will probably handle things now. He's the eldest," a third whispered. I let the words roll past me. Funerals bring out 2 things: tears and greed. Today I saw more of the latter. When the coffin settled, Clarissa stepped up beside Marcus. She leaned close to him. "After this, we should have everyone back at the house," she said, just loud enough for me to hear. "It'll be good to set the tone early." Set the tone early. I remembered that phrase. She used it years ago after their engagement. She'd said it at my dinner table, talking about positioning themselves in the family. Evelyn had squeezed my hand under the table back then, a quiet warning. Clarissa always played long games. Marcus adjusted his tie, cleared his throat, and spoke to the crowd like a man giving a speech. "Thank you all for coming to celebrate my mother's life," he said. "She built a legacy that we intend to continue. Please join us at the family home after this. We want to keep her spirit alive together." He glanced at me when he said "we." It wasn't an invitation. It was a declaration. The service ended with the usual handshakes, long embraces, and wet condolences. "She was such a beautiful soul," someone told me. "I know she's watching over you," another said. Their words felt hollow, scripted. I nodded politely like a man half listening to a radio he couldn't turn off. Clarissa approached me last. "Mr. Harris," she said sweetly. "Never dad, never father. Always formal. We'll have the staff prepare your room this evening." "My room?" I asked. Her smile widened. "Yes. Marcus and I just thought it might be time to make some adjustments. You've been through so much, and the house is big. It's only practical." "Practical," I repeated. She tilted her head. "Of course, we'll talk more tomorrow. But don't worry. We'll take good care of everything." She patted my arm like she was reassuring a client, then walked away, heels clicking against the wet pavement. Marcus followed, one hand on her lower back, a king and queen walking toward their castle. I stayed by the grave. My brother Harold came over, rain dripping off his hat. "You holding up, James?" "I'm fine," I said. "You don't look fine." "You look—" "Still, I'm just thinking." He shifted uneasily. "Marcus looks like he's already planning things." "You know how he gets?" I looked at him then. Really looked. Harold wasn't warning me. He was distancing himself. He didn't want to be in the crossfire. "I know exactly how he gets," I said. Harold sighed. "Look, I'll see you at the house. But don't make a scene today, okay? Evelyn wouldn't want that, Evelyn." Even her name cut through me like soft thunder. She'd been my anchor for 42 years. She'd balanced my quiet patience with her fierce warmth. She'd warned me about Marcus's ambition long before I wanted to see it. And now, here I was, watching that ambition breathe freely over her grave. As the crowd thinned, I found myself alone at the edge of the burial site. The rain had softened into a mist. The pastor packed away his book. Workers began filling the grave, the dull sound of wet earth covering her casket. I stepped closer, resting one hand on the wooden railing around the plot. "You were right, Evelyn," I whispered. "They're already circling." A flash of memory hit me. Marcus at 21, yelling in the kitchen after I refused to give him another loan for his startup. "You're stuck in the past, Dad," he'd shouted. "When you're gone, I'll run this place the way it should have been run." Evelyn had stood between us, calm but firm. "Don't talk to your father like that," he'd stormed out, slamming the door. That was the day I first saw the coldness that now stood before me in a tailored black suit. I exhaled slowly. The fight back then was about money. Now it was about everything. I pulled my coat tighter, turned toward the house in the distance. Its dark windows stared back at me like watchful eyes. I could already imagine Marcus inside, rearranging furniture, discussing plans, erasing traces of me and Evelyn's years together. But not yet. Let him feel safe. Let him believe the old man is tired, broken, ready to hand over everything. Let him talk freely in his castle, unaware that I'm listening. I glanced down at the grave one last time and whispered, "Watch closely, Evelyn. They're about to show their true faces." Then I walked away, calm, deliberate, my footsteps sinking into the wet ground like quiet promises. I thought grief would be my biggest burden after Evelyn died. I was wrong. The real weight came the next morning, wrapped in paperwork and polite betrayal. Marcus showed up before breakfast, wearing the same black suit from the funeral, like he hadn't even changed. Clarissa followed a step behind, her heels clicking across the wooden floor. Evelyn and I sanded ourselves 30 years ago. "Morning, Dad," Marcus said, already opening his briefcase. "We should get some of the practical matters out of the way while everything's fresh." "Fresh?" He said it like we were discussing leftovers, not my wife's death. I sat at the head of the dining table, my chair, the one Evelyn used to pat as she set down my coffee. The house still smelled faintly of lilies from the funeral flowers. Clarissa laid out a stack of papers in front of me. "These are just a few preliminary adjustments," she said sweetly. "You don't need to worry. Marcus has everything under control. I didn't touch the papers." "What kind of adjustments?" Marcus slid his chair closer. "Mainly property and estate matters. The house technically belongs to the next generation now. You'll always be welcome here, of course, but it's time to think about downsizing. Something easier to manage. More appropriate." "Appropriate," I repeated. "Yes," Clarissa said. "We know this house holds a lot of memories, but it's too much for one person. You should be somewhere peaceful." "Less responsibility?" Marcus tapped the papers with a pen. "We can make this simple, Dad. If you just sign, we can transfer everything seamlessly. The lawyers already started the estate processing. We just need your confirmation." I looked at the pen, then at him. His face was smooth, composed, almost rehearsed. This wasn't grief speaking. This was strategy. "You've been busy," I said quietly. Clarissa smiled like she was receiving praise. "We're just trying to make sure things don't get messy." I leaned back in my chair. "Messy for who?" Marcus's jaw tightened. "For everyone?" "Look, I'm not trying to be the bad guy here, but we both know Mom wanted the family legacy to continue through me. It makes sense. You're retired. I've got the business. Clarissa knows how to handle the household. This is the natural next step." I stayed silent. Years of board meetings, legal discussions, and raising a stubborn son had taught me that silence can rattle a man faster than shouting. Marcus shifted in his seat, mistaking my quiet for weakness. "Dad, you've done your part," he said. "Now it's time for me to take care of things. You can relax." Let go Evelyn's voice echoed in my mind from a conversation years ago. If he ever starts talking about taking care of things, pay attention. That's when he's planning something. I finally spoke. "I'm not signing anything today." Marcus blinked. "Why not?" "Because my wife was buried yesterday," I said, "and because I don't sign anything I don't fully understand." Clarissa's smile faltered for half a second before returning, like a mask snapping back into place. "Of course," she said lightly. "Take your time. We'll come back tomorrow, but the lawyers are moving quickly, so don't wait too long." They packed their papers and left the room like salespeople who'd planted their pitch. Once their footsteps faded upstairs, I looked around the dining room. Evelyn's china cabinet was open. A few crystal pieces were missing from the top shelf. Her mother's antique clock was gone from the mantel. My jaw tightened. I walked through the house, slowly. In the hallway, Marcus's cousin Renee carried a framed family photo toward the front door. "Renee," I said. She froze. "Oh, Uncle James, I was just—" Clarissa said we could each pick something to remember Aunt Evelyn by. I stared at the frame. It was our wedding portrait. "And you picked this?" She flushed. "I can put it back." I didn't say a word. She set the frame down and hurried out the door, pretending to check her phone. In Evelyn's sewing room, her silver thimble collection, the one she'd built over 40 years, was half empty. Someone had carefully removed rows of them, not stolen in a rush, picked clean, piece by piece. Downstairs, I opened the bank mail that had arrived that morning. 2 envelopes, both notices. Both accounts temporarily frozen for estate processing. Evelyn's charity fund, our joint savings, even my personal pension. I sat down in her rocking chair and let the quiet press in. For the first time since the funeral, I wasn't just grieving. I was calculating. Flashback. Marcus, at 19, sitting across from me at this very table. "I need $50,000 for my business idea," he'd said confidently. I'd shaken my head. "You need a job first." He'd slammed his fist down. "When you're gone, this house will be mine anyway." Evelyn had stepped between us. "Not if you act like this," she'd said. "Respect builds legacy, not greed." Now, decades later, his tone hadn't changed, only his tactics. By evening, Clarissa had reorganized the living room. Evelyn's floral couch, the one she loved, was dragged into storage, replaced by a leather sectional Clarissa had ordered years ago but never dared to use. Marcus walked through the house like a man inspecting his kingdom. He found me in the hallway, staring at the empty mantel. "Dad, I'm glad you're being cooperative," he said. "This transition will be smoother if we all stay on the same page." "I haven't agreed to anything," I replied. He laughed softly. "You don't have to." Some things are inevitable. I studied his face. Confident, careless, convinced that grief had made me blind. That night, instead of sleeping in the master bedroom, I quietly moved into the small guest room at the end of the hall, the one with the peeling wallpaper and the single lamp. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't argue. I just shifted silently, like a shadow retreating into the corner. Let them think I was shrinking. Let them think the old man had surrendered. As I lay on the narrow bed, I stared at the ceiling and replayed every theft, every subtle move, every whisper exchanged between Marcus and Clarissa. My grief hardened into something colder, sharper. They thought they were taking control. What they didn't realize was that I'd spent a lifetime building this house, brick by brick, room by room. Every wall held a story they didn't know. Every document had a history they hadn't read. And I wasn't done watching. Not yet. I didn't sleep. Grief paced the halls, but strategy opened the workshop. The room Marcus never entered because sawdust made his suits itch. I flipped the bench lamp on, oil cedar cold iron. In the corner sat a small box, labeled in Evelyn's handwriting, "For when silence ends." "Morning, Ev," I whispered. "It ends now." I cut the tape with my pocket knife, letters tied with ribbon. Beneath them, title deeds, insurance riders, copies of tax filings, and my hand-drawn blueprints of the house I built board by board. Back then I drew for pride. Tonight I needed leverage. I read the first letter. "If he ever turns on you, remember, not everything is in his name." My chest tightened, not with pain but with clarity. She had seen the slope long before I felt it. Another letter. I added Loretta to the cottage title. Clause 14. B protects the charity trust. Ask Mr. Wren for the old file. Do not show Marcus these letters. Her voice lived between the lines. Calm, practical, unafraid. Footsteps in the hall. A door upstairs closed. Clarissa laughed, the sound of a woman redecorating a throne. I kept the lamp low and spread papers across the bench. The big house deed listed survivorship language from the roof refinance. The cottage title showed Aunt Loretta as joint owner. The trust listed a secondary trustee. I checked my drawer. Mr. Wren's card lay tucked behind a wrench. exactly where Evelyn would hide it. "All right," I whispered. "Bones and locks." At dawn, I left by the side door in a plain coat and took the city bus to the county building. The clerk at records barely looked up when I asked for copies of titles and amendments. He stamped, fetched, took my cash. I wanted help that forgets your face. On a metal bench outside, I checked the pages. Loretta's name on the cottage. A maintenance grant attached to the refinance. Veto power over permanent alterations or conveyance for a limited term. My term. The trust required 2 signatures, not Marcus's. "You careful woman," I said. "You packed a parachute." My phone buzzed. "Marcus. Appraiser at 3. Be presentable." I pocketed the phone, scanned my blueprints at a copy shop, and emailed PDFs to an address I used only for taxes and the credit union. Then I stared at the business card and dialed. "Wren," a dry voice answered. "Mr. Wren, it's James Harris." "James, I'm sorry about Evelyn. She left me instructions. She always did. What trouble wears Marcus's face this time? The expensive kind. I need quiet filings, fast back entrance." Noon. His office smelled like paper and stubbornness. He wore a cardigan and a grin that didn't fake youth. "Put the bones down," he said. I laid out copies. He read like a surgeon listens to a heartbeat. No rush, no panic. "Clause 14B is solid," he said. "Loretta's joint title is a wall Marcus can't see over. Your refinance added a maintenance grant, strong enough to freeze any sale or remodel until it expires next spring. The trust account requires your signature and mine. Marcus has nothing. You're the secondary trustee. Evelyn named me, said you'd forget to ask until flames kiss the curtains." He slid a form toward me. "Reappoint me as representative. I'll file notices. Maintenance veto, trustee affirmation, and a polite reminder to Clarissa that distributing belongings before settlement is conversion. Make it sharp. Polite cuts deeper." We drafted a bank request to unfreeze my personal pension, a notice to the appraiser that entry needed my consent, a letter to Aunt Loretta. "I may need your signature soon." Wren stamped, scanned, and stacked. "By the time your boy notices," he said, "every door will answer to a different key." I left with a folder heavier than grief. On the way home, I stopped at the church. A woman polished brass. I sat in a pew and spoke under my breath. "Ev, I see your map. I'm walking it." Back at the house, the air smelled like lemon polish and new rules. Clarissa floated through the foyer in pearls. "The appraiser will be here any minute," she said. "Please be agreeable." "We're showing a unified front." "We're showing a lawful one," I replied. Her smile thinned. "Meaning?" "You'll know this afternoon." She laughed softly. "From whom?" "Your fishing buddies?" Marcus came down the stairs, phone to his ear. "List next week," he told someone. "We'll close fast." He ended the call and eyed my folder. "Paperwork? Did you finally sign?" "I visited an old friend," I said. "Which one?" "The kind who reads small print." A car door thumped outside. Clarissa smoothed her dress. Marcus set his shoulders like a man ready to claim a deed. The door opened to a courier in a dark suit. "Delivery for Mr. Marcus Harris and Mrs. Clarissa Harris." Clarissa took the first envelope. She scanned the opening line. Color climbed her neck. Marcus tore his, eyes jumping across Wren's careful phrases. Notice of maintenance veto. Trustee affirmation, entry by consent only. Conversion is a civil matter. Marcus looked up. "What is this?" "Language," I said. "This is nothing," he snapped. "Words. Lawyers play with paper. Value lives in the house. Law decides who owns the door." He stepped close. "You think you can stop me? I'm the executor in practice." "In practice isn't in law." Another car pulled up. An older man with a clipboard stepped onto the porch. He introduced himself, then eyed the envelopes. "Before I proceed," he said, "do I have written permission from all parties listed on the maintenance grant?" "You have mine," I answered. He read and held his pen without touching the page. "I'll confirm with the county before I enter." "You work for me," Marcus said. "I work for my license," the man replied, stepping back. The foyer fell quiet by grandfather clock Evelyn loved. Its slow tick filled the space like a judge counting seconds. Marcus stared at me over the envelopes. I saw the boy who once wanted my truck keys without a license, dressed now in a good suit and the same impatience. Flashback. 19-year-old Marcus, palm out at this table. 50,000, Dad. Evelyn touched his wrist. Respect builds legacy. He laughed then. Not now. He pointed at the workshop door. What's in there? History, I said, and measurements. I'm done asking. He started toward it. I stepped in his path, calm. Touch that door, and I call the police to report interference with protected property. Then I email your board the trust documents. His jaw worked. Clarissa's pearl earring trembled. We don't want a scene, she said. You made one, I answered, when you scheduled an appraiser for a house you don't control. Marcus's phone lit. A message from an unknown number. Wren's firm. He read. His eyes changed. Dad, he said, voice lower. We can talk. We will, I said, on paper. The clock ticked. The courier left. The appraiser drove away. Marcus stared at the letters like they were written in a language he never studied. What did you do? He asked. I looked at Evelyn's photograph on the hall table. Her smile was patient, knowing. The ribbon-tied letters pressed against my pocket. Fear had something smarter to do. I started turning on the lights, I said. They thought they'd push me out. They didn't realize I was just stepping into the shadows. 3 weeks after the funeral, I moved out, as requested. But instead of some quiet retirement home, I signed a short-term lease under the name Joseph Cole in a modest brick apartment building on the edge of town. No one in the family knew the address. No one knew the name. That was the point. The landlord barely glanced at me when I handed over the deposit. The beard I'd grown itched against my collar, and the baseball cap pulled low made me look more like a retired mechanic than a homeowner. The clothes were plain, the car old. To anyone watching, I was a man shrinking into obscurity. Perfect. Marcus and Clarissa wasted no time. Within days of my departure, invitations went out. Their first gathering was less a memorial and more a victory parade. I drove by slowly the night of the party. The house glowed with warm lights. Cars lined the street. Through the windows I saw new furniture, new drapes, walls repainted in sterile white. My walls, Evelyn's curtains, gone. From my car I whispered, enjoy it while you can. The next morning I returned during daylight, blending in like a handyman checking the property. Most of my old access points still worked. The shed key, the side gate, the camera system hidden beneath the eaves. Cameras Marcus didn't even know existed. Evelyn used to joke that I installed them like a paranoid detective. Now they'd become my eyes. I opened the shed and knelt beside the tool rack. The wooden panel under the bottom shelf came off with a single tug. Inside, I planted a small audio recorder. I left another inside the mailbox post, a place Clarissa never touched because she didn't like bugs. I reactivated the old security cameras remotely from my phone. Marcus thought he'd taken control of the house, but the network still ran through my private cloud server. He hadn't changed a single password. Back in the car, I whispered, "You built your castle," but I built its walls. That evening, I listened to the first recordings. Laughter, clinking glasses, music. Then Clarissa's voice, loud and self-satisfied. I told him, "You've had your time. It's our turn now." He just nodded like some broken old man. Honestly, it was easier than I thought. Someone else laughed. Marcus's voice followed. "He's not going to fight it. He never does. He builds things. I run them." The room erupted in approval. My hands tightened around the steering wheel as the recording played. They were right about one thing. I didn't fight with noise. I fought with patience. The next day, I visited Evelyn's lawyer again. Mr. Wren sat behind his oak desk, glasses perched on the tip of his nose, as if he'd been expecting me. "Well," he said, "you look different." I smiled faintly. "Different is useful. Are we moving forward?" I nodded and slid a small notebook across the desk. Inside were the dates, recordings, and the first notes of my quiet investigation. "I found some interesting things," I said. "Clarissa and Marcus have been making moves. Redecorating, hosting events, treating the house like it's already theirs." "It's predictable," Wren said. "They don't understand the paperwork they stepped into." "Show me," I said. He opened a thick folder and flipped to Evelyn's will. "Your wife was thorough. There's a protective clause buried in Section 9. It locks property ownership changes and business shared distributions for 6 months after her passing. No transfers, no sales, no restructuring, without your explicit approval. Marcus didn't read the will carefully. Clarissa assumed her lawyers handled everything. They both missed the clause. I didn't. I leaned back slowly. She really did see this coming. She always did, Wren replied. You're still the primary signatory on the house and trust accounts. If they try to push through a sale or move assets, it'll get flagged. And if they ignore it, they'll trigger legal consequences they won't see coming. I smiled. They're building their castle on sand. For the next week, I became a ghost in their world. By day, Joseph Cole blended in with coffee shop regulars, county clerks, and quiet streets. By night, I sat in my small apartment, headphones on, listening. Clarissa held a ladies' brunch. It's such a relief to finally have control, she said between bites of croissant. The old man used to keep everything so sentimental. I'm turning this place into something worthy of us, Marcus, hosted business associates in my study. Once the title transfer's done, we'll refinance. Flip some assets. It's a gold mine. Dad's too sentimental to understand how things work now. They laughed over wine, never suspecting the microphones. I drove by one afternoon and noticed Aunt Loretta's car in the driveway. That caught my attention. She rarely visited. I parked 2 houses away and watched from behind tinted glass. Through the kitchen window, I saw Loretta sitting stiffly at the table, while Marcus talked at her like a salesman. Clarissa poured tea with that fake sweetness I'd come to know too well. Loretta didn't look convinced. Her hands stayed clasped in her lap. When she stood to leave, she didn't shake their hands. She just gave a single sharp nod. Good. She hadn't forgotten whose side she was on. One evening, as I sifted through hours of recordings, I caught something new. A voice I didn't recognize said, "You sure the paperwork's clean, Marcus?" Older folks sometimes tuck surprises in those documents. Marcus laughed. "There's nothing in there. I've got it all." Clarissa added, "Please. He doesn't even know how to check his email without me. He's harmless." I pressed pause. Slowly, a grin spread across my face. They were underestimating me in every possible way. Good. The quieter they thought I was, the louder the fall would sound. One night, I stood across the street, hands in my coat pockets, watching through the trees. The house glowed like a stage set. Clarissa walked through the living room holding a wine glass. Marcus stood at the study window, phone to his ear, back turned to the world. Inside those walls, they believed they'd already won, but I knew better. 3 weeks ago, I'd been the grieving widower, standing at a grave, listening to my son whisper threats. Now I was something else entirely, a familiar stranger, invisible to them but watching every move. Evelyn had always told me, "You don't win by shouting. You win by knowing what they'll say before they say it." And now, thanks to their arrogance, I did. The next morning, I mailed copies of the first recordings and a short legal notice to my own attorney, not Wren, a second lawyer, Quiet Insurance. Before sealing the envelope, I looked at Evelyn's handwriting on the old blueprint page I kept folded in my pocket. She'd written in the corner, "For when they forget who built this." I whispered, "They've already forgotten." I slipped the envelope into the mailbox, locked the door, and walked away down the street. From now on, they wouldn't just be facing a father. They'd be facing a man they didn't recognize anymore. They thought the old man was fading. I let them believe it while I turned their laughter into evidence. Every smile they wore became a timestamp. Every boast became a file name. "Play it again," I murmured in my small apartment. Clarissa's voice filled my headphones. "We'll reroute the donations for a few months," she told someone at brunch. "No one will notice. The trust is basically ours now," another voice asked. "And the old man?" Marcus answered, smooth as a salesman. "He's out." He won't lift a finger. I saved the clip. 05A_brunch_redirect.wav. Then I opened the next folder, doorbell footage, driveway cams, study mic. My chessboard lived in folders and timestamps. Next morning I visited the gardener, Luis, at the shed. He was trimming hedges when I arrived in my cap and work coat. "Morning," I said. "Sprinkler timer still acting up?" He squinted, then smiled. "Mr. Harris?" "I heard you moved." "I changed addresses," I said. "Not principals." He glanced toward the house. "They told staff to speak through Clarissa." "I'm not asking you to speak against anyone," I said. Just tell the truth you already know. He lowered his voice. They made me haul boxes from the study the day after the funeral. 3 bankers' boxes. I saw donation checks inside. Some were made out to the trust, but Marcus told me to take them to his car. You sure? I can sign something, he said, but don't drag my wife into this. I'll protect you, I said. He nodded and handed me a small flash drive. Security footage from the back gate. I saved copies before they changed the login. At a corner table in the coffee shop, I watched the clip. Marcus at the back gate, hands full of envelopes, sliding them into his trunk. Clarissa scanned the driveway. Hurry, she whispered. He smiled. Relax. Dad's napping. I saved it. 11C_backgate_trunk.mp4. That afternoon, I knocked on Mrs. Porter's door 2 houses down. She opened with the chains still on. James, she said, I thought you'd disappeared. I needed quiet, I said. Did you see a courier last week? I did, she said. He brought a thick envelope. Later that night, I saw Marcus burn papers in the fire pit. Kept looking over his shoulder like a boy hiding cigarettes. Would you write that down? For Evelyn, she said. Yes. I called Wren. I have witnesses and video. Bring them, he said. Also, the bank flagged unusual transfers from the trust. Day after the funeral and 2 times since. Temporary holds are in place. Good, I said. Let the walls creak. At the church, Pastor Ray met me in the vestibule. I heard donations stopped, he said. Marcus asked for access to the memorial fund to modernize outreach. Did you give him anything? No, he said. But some pledges went missing. I showed him the trust charter. I'll send a notarized letter confirming I'm the signatory. Forward. All requests to me. With relief, he said. Evelyn trusted you, not him. Back at my apartment, I laid everything on the table. Bank alerts, witness notes, videos, audio clips. Every file had a twin. One on an encrypted drive and one in the cloud account Marcus thought I couldn't use. I hit play on the next recording. Clarissa laughed over music. Kicking the old man out was easier than I expected, she said. A friend gasped. Cold. Clarissa shrugged. He's sentimental. He'll never fight. Evelyn's voice rose in memory. They mistake your quiet for surrender. Let them. The following morning, I met the mail carrier, Mr. Cho, at the corner boxes. Do you remember any redirected mail after the funeral? I asked. He frowned. Yes, a temporary forwarding request for trust correspondence, but it wasn't signed by you. It had Marcus's email. Would you put that in writing? If it helps, he said. Evelyn once made cookies for our route during heat waves. I don't forget kindness. At dusk, I kept to the hedges and watched a small meeting. Marcus, Clarissa, and a man with a briefcase. My recorder on the thermostat caught it all. The man said, Wire transfers must match the beneficiary name. Editing the memo line doesn't change. The owner, Marcus snapped, Find a way. Clarissa leaned forward. We have access to the house. He won't notice adjustments. The man sighed. You're playing with fire. Then bring water, Marcus said. I labeled it. 14A_briefcase_compliance.wave. Next day, I drove to the county office with Aunt Loretta's number on an index card. On the way, I called the home health aide. Is she clear-minded? I asked. Has a bell in the morning, she said. At records, I requested certified copies of the cottage title and the maintenance grant. Raised seals, pressed meaning into paper. Proof wasn't just words, it was weight. At Loretta's apartment, sunlight fell across a crocheted blanket. She looked small, but bright-eyed. James, she whispered. You took too long. I needed to arrive with both hands full, I said. I placed the titles on her lap. Clarissa and Marcus want to move fast. They believe you're fragile. She laughed softly. I am 91, but I can still sign my name. Where do you need it? Here and here, I said, reaffirming joint ownership and notice of veto rights. She signed steady. Send them a copy, she said, and send the sheriff one for safekeeping. Outside, I called Wren. Loretta signed. Good, he said. We'll file today. The bank's audit wants third-party statements. Do you have any? Luis, Mrs. Porter, Pastor Ray, and Mr. Cho. That's a choir, Wren said. Let them sing. Night settled when I returned to my apartment. I brewed coffee and opened the master folder. Every clip aligned with a date. Every statement connected to a document. My grief had become a grid, my anger a ledger. Before shutting down, I printed a hard copy index of the files and mailed duplicates to my second attorney. In case anything happens to me, I said to the empty room, paper remembers what people try to forget. The last file for the day was a screen recording, my login to the trust portal, the flag transfers, the failed attempts to change the beneficiary email. I narrated over it, calm and steady. This is James Harris. I am the trustee. These transfers were not authorized. I exported the video and backed it up twice. My phone rang. The name stopped my breath for a beat. Aunt Loretta, I answered. Loretta? Her voice came cracked but clear, iron in it. I've been waiting for this day, James. He's about to learn who this house really belongs to. The first crack didn't make a sound. It appeared on a tax notice buried under a pile of party invitations. Marcus thought no one would see it. But I did. 3 weeks after I disappeared into my quiet alias, his polished image started to slip. Contractors stopped showing up. Bank letters piled in the foyer unopened. Whispers spread faster than paint on his freshly white walls. In my small apartment, I listened to Clarissa's voice on the recordings. Marcus, these unpaid invoices are piling up, she hissed one night. We can't keep throwing parties and ignoring the bills. Relax, he muttered. I'll move some money from the trust. It's temporary. You said that last week. I paused the audio, smiling to myself. Temporary was becoming permanent. A few days later, an email from Wren came through. Subject, County Clerk Notice. Deed filing error. I read every line slowly. Marcus had filed an ownership amendment to the house without Loretta's signature. It had been rejected. Twice. Sloppy, I whispered. Very sloppy. Meanwhile, their parties kept coming. Caterers, DJs, realtors pretending to be friends. But outside their circle, the whispers grew louder. At the grocery store, 2 of Evelyn's old church friends talked in the next aisle. Lavish dinner last weekend. Already? Can you imagine? Evelyn hasn't even been gone 2 months. Money changes people. Or maybe it just shows who they always were. I walked past them quietly, pushing my cart, a stranger with a beard and a cap. No one recognized Joseph Cole. One evening, Clarissa cornered Marcus in the kitchen, and the microphones picked up every word. The property tax bill came, she said. It's 3 months overdue. I told you I'm handling it. Are you? Because the county sent a notice. I found it in the mail pile under the event contracts. Do you even know how much the penalties are? He exhaled sharply. Clarissa, stop panicking. I'll figure it out before Dad catches wind of anything. She didn't know I'd been watching for weeks. He didn't know I already had the notices copied and filed. To tighten the net, I attended the monthly neighborhood meeting. Hood up, cap low. No one noticed me slipping into the back row of the community center. Evelyn and I used to attend together. People still talked about her like she was the town's spine. Mrs. Porter spoke first. I don't like what's happening over there, she said, pointing toward our street. Evelyn's house was always respectful. Now? Loud music, lights till 2 a.m., and strangers parking on the lawn. Another neighbor nodded. They threw a champagne brunch last Sunday while contractors are threatening to sue for unpaid bills. Someone muttered, he inherited too fast. It's going to blow up, I sat quietly, arms folded, absorbing every word. Seeds of doubt were already taking root. I didn't have to plant them. Marcus did that himself. 2 days later, a contractor named Reggie showed up at the house while Marcus was outside pruning hedges for show. The mic in the shed caught it. Where's my check? Reggie demanded. I told you next week. You told me that 3 weeks ago. I got workers threatening to walk. Don't raise your voice, Marcus warned. Then pay what you owe, Reggie snapped. I'm done waiting. Clarissa stepped onto the porch, arms crossed. Marcus, handle this, she whispered through clenched teeth. I am, he said. We're finalizing some paperwork. It's just delayed. Paperwork doesn't pour concrete, Reggie shot back. Last warning. He left with his boots kicking up gravel. Marcus's kingdom was wobbling, and the workers could smell blood. That night, Marcus's voice cracked for the first time on my recordings. Clarissa, you don't get it, he said in the study. The bank flagged the transfers. Wren's probably behind it, and Loretta's name on the deed is messing everything up. Then fix it, she snapped, before your father finds out. I'm trying, He slammed something. Do you think I expected the old man to have all these hidden clauses? She lowered her voice. Marcus, if he comes back with lawyers, we're screwed. He didn't answer. I sat in my chair, sipping coffee, letting their panic pour into my ears like music. One afternoon, I returned to the neighborhood under my alias. A few locals gathered around a parked truck, chatting about taxes. Did you hear? The county almost seized part of the property for unpaid taxes. Marcus, someone said. Already? He's playing big man without paying his dues. I approached slowly, pretending to be a curious neighbor. Excuse me, I said, adjusting my cap. What's going on? The man with the truck shrugged. That house down the street. New owners throwing parties like he's a king. But rumor is the IRS might come knocking. I nodded. Some thrones crack faster than others. He laughed. Ain't that the truth? The next recording came unexpectedly. It was late, close to midnight. Marcus and Clarissa were alone in the living room, voices low but tense. We should have sold faster, Clarissa whispered. All these bills are stacking up. We can't sell until we fix the deed issue, Marcus muttered. Then forge it, she hissed. Are you insane? Loretta might be old, but she's not stupid. Then find another way. Because if this falls apart, people will blame you. He slammed a glass down. Stop telling me what to do. There was a silence that lingered like a warning. For the first time, she wasn't the one controlling the tone. He was cracking, and she could hear it. By the end of the week, I'd collected enough proof to see the fractures clearly. Unpaid taxes, rejected deeds, angry contractors, whispering relatives, panicked arguments. All of it was evidence of a kingdom that wasn't built to last. Evelyn's voice echoed in my mind from years ago. He builds fast, but never builds deep. I pulled out my notebook, drew a line through the word observation, and wrote the next word in capital letters. Destabilization. They thought I was in the dark, but the truth was simple. I was the one watching their throne crumble from the shadows. They didn't send a condolence card. They sent an invitation dressed like a crown. Family reunion, the gold script read, honoring our new chapter under Marcus's leadership. I held the card by its edge. The way you hold something that stains, Clarissa called within minutes. Mr. Harris, we're gathering everyone this Saturday. It's important the family sees stability. Stability, I said. Is that what we're calling it? It's what Evelyn would have wanted. My wife wanted truth, I answered. I'll be there. A beat of surprise. Wonderful. Dress formal, I opened the workshop. Letters tied with ribbon. Blueprints. Filings. I touched Evelyn's handwriting like a compass. I called Wren. The window closes tomorrow. Are we ready? We're ready, he said. Loretta's reaffirmation notarized. Maintenance veto recorded. Trust letters delivered. I'll courier proofs. Send 3, I said. 1 to the sheriff. Loretta poured tea while I reviewed the last page. He's hosting the coronation, I told her. Then sing the right hymn, she said, signing steady. Make him read the line about houses built on sand. Back at my apartment, I laid out the grid. Loretta, Harold, Mrs. Porter, Pastor Ray, Luis, Mr. Cho, journalist, Metro, journalist, local. Inside each, dated clips, filings, a note, for your records, for Evelyn. Marcus rang. About Saturday, he said. We'll present a plan for the estate. Your plan, I said. Our plan, he corrected. Do you need my signature for the performance? He exhaled. This isn't a fight. It's a reunion, I said. I'll arrive early. At dusk, I met Luis by the back fence. Invoices, he said, giving me a folder. 2 bounced. Contractors are angry. Anger remembers details, I said. The copy shop hummed. Stamps rose. Paper doesn't shout. It waits, then lands. Night recordings poured through my headphones. Make the toast short, Clarissa told Marcus. Speak about legacy. Don't mention taxes. And Dad? He'll sit quietly. He hates scenes. I used to, I told the room. Then you wrote new scenes for me. Friday, Wren slid a final envelope across his desk. Bank flags, trust audit, and a letter to the board. Release on your signal. What's my signal? You'll smooth your tie, he said. Left hand. I smiled. You know me. I watched Evelyn watch you, he said. I learned the tells. At noon, I met Pastor Ray in the empty sanctuary. Do you need me there? Be ready by the phone, I said. If they lie about the memorial fund, you'll speak. I'll speak. Evening, Harold opened his door halfway. James, I've stayed out of it. You can keep staying out, I said, handing him a thin envelope. Open when I text. He weighed it like live wire. You sure? I am. By midnight, every packet was sealed with blue tape. I stood at the window while the city thinned. Do you think I expected the old man to have all these hidden clauses? She lowered her voice. Marcus, if he comes back with lawyers, we're screwed. He didn't answer. I sat in my chair, sipping coffee, letting their panic pour into my ears like music. One afternoon, I returned to the neighborhood under my alias. A few locals gathered around a parked truck, chatting about taxes. Did you hear? The county almost seized part of the property for unpaid taxes. Marcus, someone said. Already? He's playing big man without paying his dues. I approached slowly, pretending to be a curious neighbor. Excuse me, I said, adjusting my cap. What's going on? The man with the truck shrugged. That house down the street. New owners throwing parties like he's a king. But rumor is the IRS might come knocking. I nodded. Some thrones crack faster than others. He laughed. Ain't that the truth? The next recording came unexpectedly. It was late, close to midnight. Marcus and Clarissa were alone in the living room, voices low but tense. We should have sold faster, Clarissa whispered. All these bills are stacking up. We can't sell until we fix the deed issue, Marcus muttered. Then forge it, she hissed. Are you insane? Loretta might be old, but she's not stupid. Then find another way. Because if this falls apart, people will blame you. He slammed a glass down. Stop telling me what to do. There was a silence that lingered like a warning. For the first time, she wasn't the one controlling the tone. He was cracking, and she could hear it. By the end of the week, I'd collected enough proof to see the fractures clearly. Unpaid taxes, rejected deeds, angry contractors, whispering relatives, panicked arguments. All of it was evidence of a kingdom that wasn't built to last. Evelyn's voice echoed in my mind from years ago. He builds fast, but never builds deep. I pulled out my notebook, drew a line through the word observation, and wrote the next word in capital letters. Destabilization. They thought I was in the dark, but the truth was simple. I was the one watching their throne crumble from the shadows. They didn't send a condolence card. They sent an invitation dressed like a crown. Family reunion, the gold script read, honoring our new chapter under Marcus's leadership. I held the card by its edge. The way you hold something that stains, Clarissa called within minutes. Mr. Harris, we're gathering everyone this Saturday. It's important the family sees stability. Stability, I said. Is that what we're calling it? It's what Evelyn would have wanted. My wife wanted truth, I answered. I'll be there. A beat of surprise. Wonderful. Dress formal, I opened the workshop. Letters tied with ribbon. Blueprints. Filings. I touched Evelyn's handwriting like a compass. I called Wren. The window closes tomorrow. Are we ready? We're ready, he said. Loretta's reaffirmation notarized. Maintenance veto recorded. Trust letters delivered. I'll courier proofs. Send 3, I said. 1 to the sheriff. Loretta poured tea while I reviewed the last page. He's hosting the coronation, I told her. Then sing the right hymn, she said, signing steady. Make him read the line about houses built on sand. Back at my apartment, I laid out the grid. Loretta, Harold, Mrs. Porter, Pastor Ray, Luis, Mr. Cho, journalist, Metro, journalist, local. Inside each, dated clips, filings, a note, for your records, for Evelyn. Marcus rang. About Saturday, he said. We'll present a plan for the estate. Your plan, I said. Our plan, he corrected. Do you need my signature for the performance? He exhaled. This isn't a fight. It's a reunion, I said. I'll arrive early. At dusk, I met Luis by the back fence. Invoices, he said, giving me a folder. 2 bounced. Contractors are angry. Anger remembers details, I said. The copy shop hummed. Stamps rose. Paper doesn't shout. It waits, then lands. Night recordings poured through my headphones. Make the toast short, Clarissa told Marcus. Speak about legacy. Don't mention taxes. And Dad? He'll sit quietly. He hates scenes. I used to, I told the room. Then you wrote new scenes for me. Friday, Wren slid a final envelope across his desk. Bank flags, trust audit, and a letter to the board. Release on your signal. What's my signal? You'll smooth your tie, he said. Left hand. I smiled. You know me. I watched Evelyn watch you, he said. I learned the tells. At noon, I met Pastor Ray in the empty sanctuary. Do you need me there? Be ready by the phone, I said. If they lie about the memorial fund, you'll speak. I'll speak. Evening, Harold opened his door halfway. James, I've stayed out of it. You can keep staying out, I said, handing him a thin envelope. Open when I text. He weighed it like live wire. You sure? I am. By midnight, every packet was sealed with blue tape. I stood at the window while the city thinned. My fingers brushed the edge of Evelyn's letter inside my jacket. She had predicted every word. Marcus continued. This estate isn't just land. It's a story of resilience. Under my leadership, we'll expand its impact, modernize operations, and ensure the family legacy thrives for generations. Clarissa smiled at the crowd. And we're so grateful for all of your support, she added. Together, we're stepping into a new era. She wasn't wrong. We were. Just not the era they imagined. As Marcus launched into numbers and plans, I slipped toward the aisle. A few relatives noticed me moving forward. Whispers followed. Is that? He came after all? Why is he carrying a folder? Clarissa spotted me first. Her smile faltered. Marcus kept talking, unaware. I stopped beside the podium. He hesitated for a split second. I leaned in. You've had your turn, I whispered. Now it's mine. Dad, not now, he hissed into the microphone. Yes, I said calmly, turning to the crowd. Now. The microphone caught my voice clearly. A ripple of silence swept the tent. Marcus stepped back, trying to keep his smile fixed. I faced the guests. I've listened to many speeches in this yard. Most were honest. Some were hopeful. Tonight, I heard a lie dressed as legacy. A murmur ran through the crowd. Clarissa stepped closer to Marcus, eyes flashing. I wasn't going to speak, I continued. But then I remembered the last thing Evelyn said before she passed. She told me, when he tries to wear a crown, make sure everyone knows who built the castle. I placed my briefcase on the podium and opened it slowly, like a surgeon preparing instruments. Marcus has spoken about his vision. Let's talk about facts. I pulled out the first set of documents. The original deed, stamped and notarized. This house, I said, holding it up, was never Marcus's to claim. It belongs jointly to me and my sister-in-law, Loretta. No changes can be made without both signatures. Loretta stood, cane firm. And he never asked mine, she said loudly. Phones rose, cameras clicked, guests turned their heads toward Marcus. His face stiffened. The second set came next. Here, I said, are county clerk rejection notices for forged filings Marcus submitted without authorization. Gasps. Someone muttered, Forged? Clarissa stepped forward. Mr. Harris, this is inappropriate. Inappropriate, I repeated. No. Stealing is inappropriate. Lying to family is inappropriate. Embezzling from your mother's trust? Marcus barked. Watch your mouth. I didn't raise my voice. No. You watch this. I played a short audio clip from my phone. Clarissa's voice came through the speakers, clear as day. We'll reroute the donations for a few months. No one will notice. The trust is basically ours now. Then Marcus's voice. He's out. He won't lift a finger. The room turned to ice. I held up bank statements. Transfers made without trustee consent. Frozen. Under investigation, the Metro journalist raised her camera. Is this on record? She asked. Yes, I replied. Every line. Marcus stepped forward, eyes wild. This is my event. Sit down, old man. I turned to him. You tried to bury me with your mother, but you forgot. I built this house before you learned to walk. That landed like thunder. Clarissa whispered urgently, Marcus, do something. He turned to the guests, stammering, This is all being taken out of context. These documents are incomplete. Loretta's cane struck the floor. No boy. They're complete. And signed. The crowd erupted. Some shouted questions. Some pulled out phones. A cousin yelled, Did you forge documents? Another demanded, what happened to the charity fund? Marcus raised his hands, sweating under the lights. Calm down. Everyone calm down. Clarissa tried to salvage it. We can explain. No, I said. You can answer. I held up Evelyn's letter last. Her handwriting filled the page. Before she passed, Evelyn wrote this. She said, if Marcus ever tries to lead without truth, reveal everything. Protect the legacy. I placed the letter gently on the podium, next to the deeds and recordings. Marcus stared at it like it was a ghost. The questions intensified. Journalists stepped forward. Mr. Harris, did you file forged deeds? What about the missing trust money? Is leadership changing hands? Marcus backed away from the podium. Clarissa grabbed his arm. Say something, she hissed. He opened his mouth, then closed it. His voice, the one that had filled rooms for months, cracked in the air. I leaned close enough for only him to hear. You wanted a stage, I whispered. This is what the truth sounds like on one. I turned to the crowd. Everything you've seen tonight has been filed legally, witnessed, and notarized. There are no surprises left, just consequences. Then I stepped back, letting the storm consume him. Guests crowded the stage. Flashlights from cameras lit the tent. The pianist stopped playing. The air smelled of panic and rain. Clarissa's pale face scanned the crowd. Loretta stood like a pillar beside me. She didn't smile, but her nod said everything. Marcus stood at the center of his own celebration, surrounded not by applause, but by questions he couldn't answer. I adjusted my tie slowly, the way I did that day at Evelyn's grave, and whispered under my breath, "Lights on." I didn't need to raise my voice. The law spoke louder than I ever could. Once the truth cracked open, the fall was quick, loud, and impossible to stop. 3 weeks after the reunion, the house looked the same from the outside. Neat lawn, brick walls, quiet street. But inside, the air had shifted. Official letters covered the kitchen counter. The same place Clarissa once bragged over champagne now smelled like stale coffee and fear. Marcus sat at the table with 2 investigators. Their voices carried through the walls I built decades ago. We've traced 3 separate transfers from the charitable trust, one officer said. All during the first month after Mrs. Harris passed, the other added, and all authorized under your credentials. Marcus tried to sound composed. It was a temporary measure. A mistake in accounting. The investigator didn't flinch. Then you won't mind explaining why the transfers were labeled personal consulting fees? Clarissa hovered near the doorway, arms folded tight. She wasn't wearing pearls anymore, just a plain blouse and a clenched jaw. She didn't say a word. From my chair in the den, I listened. Not hidden, just quiet. The way I always fought best. When they left, the echo of their boots on the tile lingered. Marcus collapsed into a chair like a deflated balloon. Clarissa turned on him. Do you realize what you've done? I told you I'd fix it, he snapped. They're just looking for someone to blame. They found someone, she said coldly, and it's not going to be me. She walked away without looking back. That was the first real crack between them. It wouldn't be the last. 2 days later, her family pulled their investments from Marcus's modernization plans. Invitations stopped arriving. Calls went unanswered. The people who once circled him like satellites drifted into silence. Their loyalty had always been rented, never earned. Wren met me in his office with a small smile. Title reaffirmation came through, he said, sliding the document across the desk. House is legally yours and Loretta's. Marcus has no claim I traced the seal with my thumb. Evelyn would have liked this part. She would have liked the way you waited, he said. You didn't swing a hammer. You let the walls cave in on their own. The trust investigation made local headlines. Son of community pillar under embezzlement inquiry, the paper read. Neighbors whispered. Contractors came forward. Church members spoke up. No one had to invent a story. Marcus had written it himself. One evening, as rain tapped the windows, Marcus showed up at my apartment. No entourage, no car waiting, just him. His shirt was wrinkled. His hair looked like he'd run his hands through it too many times. Can I come in? He asked quietly. I stepped aside without a word. He sat at my table, the same way he used to when he was 15, after a fight at school. But this wasn't teenage trouble. This was years of arrogance finally meeting consequence. "Dad," he began, "I never meant for it to get this far. It was supposed to be temporary. I was just trying to make things work." I leaned back. "By forging deeds? By rerouting donations meant for kids and veterans?" His eyes flickered. I panicked. Clarissa pushed. The lawyers said. I cut him off with a raised hand. "You signed the transfers. You filed the paperwork. You threw the parties." He lowered his head. "I know. And I'm sorry. It was all a misunderstanding." "No," I said calmly. "It was greed." He looked up sharply. There it was. That flash of the boy who hated being corrected. But it died quickly. Reality had done what lectures never could. He tried again. "If we work together, maybe we can rebuild." "Show the investigators we're united." I let the silence stretch. His words hung in the air like smoke without fire. Finally, I spoke. "This is the house your mother and I built for family, not thieves." He winced, like the word cut deeper than anything else. "Good. Truth should cut. I'm not asking for power anymore," he said weakly. "I just don't want to lose everything." "You already did," I replied. He stared at me for a long time. Then he nodded slowly, as if realizing the stage was gone and the spotlight had shifted to the courtroom. Clarissa didn't stand by him. When the subpoenas came, she disappeared to her sister's house out of state. Her family issued statements about unforeseen circumstances and independent decisions. Marcus had chosen the wrong allies, and when the tide rose, they swam for themselves. Loretta called me one morning, laughing softly. "I saw the papers," she said. "He tried to build a kingdom, but forgot the land wasn't his." "Evelyn left us tools," I said. "We just had to use them." "She left you patience," Loretta corrected. "That's rarer." Weeks passed. Investigators worked. Lawyers argued. I stayed quiet. Justice didn't need my narration anymore. It had its own voice. Marcus's apology came again, this time over the phone, short and trembling. "I'm sorry, Dad," he said. "I really am." I didn't say I forgave him. I didn't say I hated him either. Some truths sit in the middle, sharp and cold. One rainy afternoon, I returned to the house, not for revenge, for closure. The locks had been changed back, the furniture restored. Loretta's name gleamed beside mine on the title plaque by the entryway. I walked through the halls, touching the banister I carved decades ago. Evelyn's sewing room was untouched. The garden smelled like it used to. The house felt alive again, not staged for parties or lies. For the first time in months, I wasn't listening through walls. I was home. Marcus stood at the gate as I was leaving, watching me through the rain. He didn't call out. I didn't wave. Some distances are earned. As I drove away, I thought of Evelyn. She'd always said, "You don't have to destroy them, James. Just let them trip over what they built." She was right. I didn't humiliate him in private. I didn't need to. The justice was already public, etched into deeds, court filings, and headlines. The house stood firm. The legacy endured. And Marcus? Marcus finally learned what happens when you try to sit on a throne built on sand. The first time I stood at this grave, Marcus whispered a threat. This time, there was no whisper, only silence, steady and clear. The kind of silence that comes after a storm has passed, leaving everything cleaner than before. It had been months since the night of the reunion. The house was quiet again, stripped of false grandeur, and returned to what Evelyn and I built together. The curtains she chose hung in the windows. The garden she loved bloomed, not for parties, but for peace. I walked down the familiar cemetery path with a single rose in hand. The grass was damp from the morning rain. Birds hopped between headstones, unbothered. When I reached her grave, I exhaled slowly, like I'd been holding my breath for months. "Evelyn," I said softly, "it's done." I knelt, brushing leaves away from the stone. Her name gleamed faintly against the gray sky. "I thought revenge would feel loud," I whispered, but it didn't. It felt quiet, measured, like tightening a knot one loop at a time. My mind replayed Marcus's words at her funeral. "You're moving out tomorrow." Back then I had only smiled. He mistook it for weakness. He didn't know that in that moment, something inside me shifted. I wasn't a broken man. I was a builder picking up his tools again. A voice interrupted my thoughts. You talk to her every time, don't you? Loretta's cane tapped against the wet ground as she approached. She wore her old black coat, buttoned to the neck. Her sharp eyes hadn't dulled. Every time, I said. She listens better than most of the living. Loretta chuckled. She always did. She stood beside me, looking at the grave. You did good, James. Real good. I shook my head slowly. It wasn't about winning. Oh, I know, she said. It was about setting the record straight. And you did that? We stood in silence for a while. In the distance, I could hear church bells. For the first time, they didn't sound like a countdown. They sounded like closure. Loretta sighed. Marcus called me last week. Wanted to rebuild bridges. I smirked faintly. He called me too. I didn't answer. You planning to? She asked. No, I said simply. Some bridges shouldn't be rebuilt, especially when they were built on lies. The first time, she nodded slowly. He's paying for what he did. Maybe not in headlines anymore, but in the quiet. That's worse flashback. Marcus, at 17, standing in the driveway after crashing his mother's car. Evelyn had folded her arms, calm but firm. You can lie to everyone else, she told him, but eventually the truth waits for you at home. That line stuck with me all these years. It became the backbone of everything that followed. Loretta rested her hand on my arm. She'd be proud of you, you know. I looked at the grave. She was always the wise one. I just followed the map she left behind. She trusted you with the map for a reason, Loretta said. You're steady when others shake. I gave a small laugh. Steady doesn't mean unbreakable. There were nights I almost let anger do the talking. But you didn't, she said. You let silence do it instead. That's rarer. After Loretta left, I stayed a while longer. The cemetery was empty. Just me, the rain-soft earth, and Evelyn's stone. I crouched down again. They thought I was fading, Evelyn. They thought time and grief would dull me. I ran my fingers over her name. But you always told me. Patience isn't weakness. It's preparation. I thought about the months I spent watching, recording, filing, sealing, waiting. Each step deliberate. Each silence a strategy. Marcus believed he was playing a game of power. But what he never understood was that power isn't loud. It's quiet. It's patient. It builds in the dark, then reveals itself in the light. I placed the single rose at the base of her headstone. Do you remember that night in the kitchen? I whispered, when he told us he'd run this place someday. You laughed. You said, he'll try to run it like a sprint. But this house was built for marathons. You were right. I smiled faintly. He sprinted himself into the wall. The wind brushed against my coat like a familiar hand on my shoulder. I didn't need to imagine it. I could almost hear her voice, calm, amused, always one step ahead. As I stood to leave, I looked back at the house in the distance through the trees. It wasn't just walls and beams. It was history. It was proof that legacy couldn't be stolen by whispers. Revenge, in the end, hadn't been about rage. It had been about restoring what was true. Marcus's whisper at the funeral had been the spark, but Evelyn's wisdom. She had laid the path long before I took my first step. Silence, patience, preparation. Those were my weapons, and they worked. I brushed off my coat, adjusted my tie, the same tie I wore on the night of the reunion, and leaned down one last time. I smiled that day, I whispered to her grave, because I already knew I wasn't the one moving out. I tapped the headstone gently, like saying goodbye without needing words, and walked away down the path. This time I wasn't leaving in grief, I was leaving in peace.